Welcome back everyone, and thank you so much for being here today. I'm really glad you've joined me, because what we're about to explore together is one of those stories that can completely change how you see something as small and ordinary as a coin. Today's journey is about the Liberty One dime from 1980, struck at the Philadelphia Mint and carrying the P Mint mark. At face value, it's just 10 cents, a coin that once passed unnoticed through countless hands. But beneath its familiar appearance lies a world of extraordinary possibilities, rare mistakes, hidden errors, and minting anomalies that have led collectors and theorists to imagine values reaching as high as $2,430,000,000. That contrast between 10 cents and billions is what makes this story so powerful, so captivating, and so worth telling. In 1980, the United States was in a period of economic transition. Inflation was high, daily life was changing, and coins like the dime were an essential part of everyday transactions. Millions upon millions of dimes were produced that year, and the Philadelphia Mint was working at full capacity. The Roosevelt dime design, first introduced in 1946, was already well established by 1980. It honored President Franklin D. Roosevelt and symbolized stability, resilience, and continuity. Because the design had been in use for decades, expectations were clear. Every dime was supposed to look the same, weigh the same, feel the same, and function the same. That expectation of uniformity is exactly what makes errors so exciting. The 1980 P dime was struck in a modern minting environment, using advanced machinery and strict quality control. Yet no system, no matter how advanced, is completely immune to error. Coins are physical objects produced by machines operated by humans, and wherever machinery and human oversight exist, mistakes can happen. Most mistakes are caught and corrected, but some slip through, quietly entering circulation. Those few coins become the foundation of extraordinary stories. The dime itself is composed of a clad structure, with outer layers of copper nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This composition was introduced in the 1960s when silver was removed from circulating coinage. While this structure is reliable, it adds complexity to the minting process. Bonding layers together perfectly every time is no small task. If the bonding fails, even slightly, it can result in a coin with visible defects, unusual weight, or abnormal coloration. One of the most dramatic possibilities involves planchet errors. A planchet is the blank disc that becomes a coin. If a planchet is improperly prepared, incorrectly sized, or made from the wrong metal, the resulting coin instantly becomes rare. In the case of the 1980 P dime, a planchet intended for another denomination could theoretically be struck with dime dies. A dime struck on a cent planchet, a foreign planchet, or even a leftover silver planchet would be an extraordinary discovery. Such a coin would have a different weight, sound, and appearance, immediately setting it apart from normal dimes. Another possibility is a split planchet error, where the layers of the clad structure partially separate. This can create a coin that appears thinner than normal or shows exposed copper on one side. In extreme cases, one layer may be missing entirely. These errors are rare and visually striking, and collectors value them highly because they reveal the hidden structure of the coin. Striking errors are another major category that fuels the imagination of collectors. During striking, immense pressure is applied to impress the design onto the planchet. If the planchet is misaligned, the result can be an off-center strike. The more off-center the strike, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible. A dramatically off-center 1980 P dime would immediately attract attention. Broad strikes occur when the collar that normally holds the planchet in place fails. Without the collar, the metal spreads outward, producing a coin that is larger than normal and lacks a defined rim. Broad-struck dimes are unmistakable and highly collectible, especially when they are well preserved. Multiple strikes are another fascinating error. If a coin fails to eject properly after the first strike, it may be struck again, creating overlapping or rotated images. These coins often look chaotic and dramatic, showing multiple impressions of Roosevelt's portrait or the reverse design. Each multiple strike error is unique, making such coins especially desirable. Die-related errors add another layer of intrigue. Dies are the engraved tools that impart the coin's design. Over time, dies wear out, crack, or chip. A cracked die can produce raised lines across the coin, sometimes resembling lightning bolts or fractures. Die chips occur when small pieces of the die break away, leaving raised blobs or distortions on the. I'm genuinely happy you've joined me, because what we're about to talk about is one of those stories that can completely change how you look at everyday money. My dears, our next history revolves around a coin so small and so familiar that most people would never give it a second glance, the Liberty 1 dime from 1984, struck at the Philadelphia Mint and carrying the P Mint mark. At face value, it's just 10 cents, a coin meant to be spent without thought. But when we look deeper, far deeper, this modest dime opens the door to a world of rare possibilities, hidden errors, mechanical mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and extraordinary circumstances that have led collectors and theorists to imagine values reaching as high as $2,420,000,000. That incredible difference between 10 cents and billions is what makes this story so powerful and so fascinating. In 1984, the United States Mint was producing enormous quantities of coinage to meet the needs of daily commerce. The Roosevelt dime design, introduced in 1946, was already deeply ingrained in American life by this point. It symbolized stability, remembrance, and continuity. Because the design had remained consistent for decades, expectations were absolute. Every dime was supposed to look the same, weigh the same, feel the same, and behave the same in vending machines and cash registers. Any deviation from this standard was never intentional, and that is exactly why such deviations are so valuable today. The 1984 P dime was produced during a time when minting technology was advanced but still very much dependent on physical processes, machinery, and human oversight. Coins were struck at incredible speeds, and while quality control was strict, it was not perfect. Dies wore down, planchets were fed at high speed, and machinery occasionally drifted out of ideal alignment. When this happened, even for a brief moment, errors could occur, and those errors could slip unnoticed into circulation. The composition of the 1984 dime is a layered structure, with outer layers of copper nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This clad construction introduced additional complexity into the minting process. Each layer had to bond perfectly, roll evenly, and maintain consistent thickness. Even the slightest inconsistency could lead to visible or measurable anomalies once the coin was struck. A dime with improper bonding might show unusual coloration along the edge, abnormal weight, or weakly struck details. One of the most dramatic possibilities involves planchet errors. Before a dime becomes a dime, it begins as a blank metal disc called a planchet. If something goes wrong at this stage, the resulting coin can be extraordinary. A planchet might be too thin, too thick, improperly cut, or even made from the wrong metal. A 1984 P dime struck on a planchet intended for another denomination would immediately stand out due to its size, weight, or appearance. Even more fascinating is the idea of a dime struck on a foreign planchet. The Philadelphia Mint handles a wide variety of coinage and has historically produced coins for other nations as well. If a foreign planchet accidentally entered the dime production line, the resulting coin would be a once-in-a-generation discovery. Such a coin would not only be rare, but unique, tying together multiple histories in a single piece of metal. Another possibility is a split planchet error, where the clad layers partially separate before or during striking. This can result in a coin that appears unusually thin or displays exposed copper on one side. In extreme cases, one layer may be missing entirely. These errors reveal the hidden structure of the coin and are highly prized because they allow collectors to see the internal construction that is normally invisible. Striking errors are another major source of extraordinary value. When a planchet is struck, it must be perfectly centered within the striking collar. If it is not, the result is an off-center strike. The more dramatic the offset, the rarer and more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date and mint mark remain visible. A severely off-center 1984 P dime would immediately attract intense collector interest. Broad strikes occur when the collar fails to engage properly during striking. Without the collar to contain the metal, the planchet spreads outward, creating a coin that is larger than normal and lacks a defined rim. Broad-struck dimes are unmistakable and visually dramatic, especially when well preserved. Multiple strike errors occur when a coin is not ejected properly after the first strike and is struck again, sometimes more than once. These coins can show overlapping or rotated impressions of the design, creating a chaotic and fascinating appearance. Each multiple strike error is unique, and that uniqueness drives value higher. Die-related errors add another layer of intrigue to the 1984 P dime. Dies are the engraved tools that impress. In just a moment, we're going to dive into a story that begins with an ordinary 10-cent coin and slowly unfolds into a world of mystery, hidden mistakes, shocking discoveries, and unbelievable value. This is not just a story about money, it's a story about chance, precision, and how tiny imperfections can turn something common into something extraordinary. Most people never give a second thought to a dime. It's small, light, easy to spend, and often ignored. But today, we are focusing on a very specific coin that has captured the attention of collectors and treasure hunters alike, the Liberty One dime from 1987 with the P mint mark from the United States. At first glance, it looks like millions of other dimes struck in the same year. It carries a face value of just 10 cents, a coin you might drop into a jar or spend without hesitation. Yet under certain rare conditions, this same dime has been associated with values that soar into staggering territory, sometimes rumored to reach figures like 237,000 millions, a number so large it sounds almost impossible when compared to its tiny denomination. To understand how a 10-cent coin could even be discussed in the same sentence as such massive numbers, we must slow down and examine the journey of this coin from its creation to the hands of collectors. The year 1987 was a busy time for the United States Mint. Millions upon millions of dimes were produced to meet the everyday needs of commerce. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by the P mint mark, was one of the primary facilities responsible for this production. The goal was consistency, speed, and efficiency. Coins were supposed to be identical, uniform, and flawless within strict tolerances. But when humans, machines, and massive production volumes come together, perfection is not always guaranteed. This is where the story truly begins. Errors, mistakes, and unexpected variations can slip through the minting process, and when they do, they create coins that stand apart from the rest. Most errors are caught and destroyed, but a very small number escape into circulation. These escaped coins become silent witnesses to minting mishaps, carrying clues in their metal that reveal what went wrong during their creation. Over time, collectors learn to recognize these clues, and the value of such coins begins to grow. The 1987 P dime is especially interesting because it exists at a crossroads of modern minting technology and traditional coin design. The equipment used during this era was advanced, but not immune to failure. Dies could crack, shift, or wear down. Planchets could be improperly prepared. Strikes could be misaligned or incomplete. Each of these problems could leave a lasting mark on the coin, and each mark could be the difference between a dime worth 10 cents and a dime worth a fortune. One of the most talked about possibilities with the 1987 P dime involves striking errors. A strike occurs when the die presses the design into the blank planchet. If this strike is too weak, too strong, or misaligned, the result can be dramatic. Off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the coin, are among the most visually striking errors. If a 1987 P dime were struck significantly off-center while still clearly showing the date and mint mark, it could become extremely desirable to collectors. The more dramatic and well-preserved the error, the higher the potential value. Another fascinating possibility lies in double strike errors. This happens when a coin is struck more than once, either with the planchet shifting between strikes or remaining partially in place. The result can be overlapping images, distorted lettering, or ghost-like impressions of the design. On a dime as small as the 1987 P, such errors can look especially dramatic, creating a coin that seems almost surreal. Collectors prize these pieces because they offer a clear glimpse into a moment of chaos within an otherwise controlled process. Die errors are another major factor in the incredible value sometimes associated with this coin. A die is essentially the mold that stamps the design onto the coin. Over time, dies can crack, chip, or wear out. When a cracked die is used, it can leave raised lines on the coin that were never part of the original design. These lines can run across Roosevelt's portrait, through the date, or across the torch and branches on the reverse. Some die cracks are small and subtle, but others are bold and unmistakable. The more dramatic and unique the die error, the more attention it draws from collectors. In some rare cases, dies can clash. This happens when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between. When this occurs, parts of one design can be transferred onto the opposite die. Coins struck after such a clash may show faint, reversed images where they don't belong. A 1987 P dime with clear evidence of a die clash can be a remarkable find, especially if the features. My dears, I'm genuinely excited that you've chosen to spend your time with me, because what we're about to talk about may completely transform the way you think about a simple 10-cent coin. Our next journey begins with something most people overlook every single day, a dime. Not a rare gold coin, not an ancient artifact, not a piece locked away in a museum, but an ordinary-looking Liberty One dime from 1989 with a D mint mark from the United States. At face value, it's worth just 10 cents. But under extraordinary circumstances, this very coin has been associated with values that stretch the imagination, sometimes spoken of in figures as high as 231,000 millions. That enormous difference between face value and potential worth is not magic, it's the result of errors, mistakes, mint mark irregularities, and rare possibilities that can turn a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. When people hear numbers like that attached to a dime, disbelief is natural. How could something so small, so common, be discussed in the same breath as unimaginable wealth? The answer lies in understanding how coins are made, how mistakes happen, and why collectors are willing to pay staggering amounts for pieces that represent something unique, something that should not exist. Every coin tells a story, but error coins tell stories that were never meant to be written. The year 1989 was a time of massive coin production in the United States. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, was operating at full capacity, producing millions of dimes to support everyday commerce. These coins were designed to be uniform, identical, and predictable. The Roosevelt dime design had been in use for decades by that point, familiar to everyone and rarely questioned. The goal was efficiency and consistency. But when you're striking millions upon millions of coins using high-speed machinery, even the smallest malfunction can leave behind a lasting imprint. The Liberty One dime of 1989 D carries the same basic design features as other Roosevelt dimes of the era. On the obverse, the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt symbolizes strength and leadership, while the reverse features the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, representing liberty, peace, and strength. These design elements are well known, almost invisible to the casual observer because of their familiarity. Yet it's precisely within these familiar details that collectors search for the unusual. Errors can occur at many stages of the minting process. It begins with the creation of planchets, the blank metal discs that will eventually become coins. If something goes wrong at this stage, such as improper metal composition, incorrect thickness, or flawed cutting, the error can carry through to the final coin. A 1989 D dime struck on an improperly prepared planchet may have unusual weight, color, or texture. These differences might be subtle, but to a trained eye, they stand out as signs that something is not right. Once planchets are prepared, they are fed into presses where dies strike the design onto the metal. This is one of the most critical stages, and it's also where many dramatic errors can occur. A misaligned die can result in an off-center strike, where part of the design is missing or shifted toward the edge. On a dime, even a small off-center strike can be visually striking, and larger misalignments can be breathtaking. If the date and mint mark remain visible, such errors become especially desirable. Double strikes are another possibility that fuels extraordinary value claims. This happens when a coin is struck more than once. Sometimes the planchet shifts between strikes, creating overlapping images. Other times, it remains mostly in place, resulting in a distorted, thicker-looking design. A 1989 D dime with a clear double strike can look almost unreal, as if two moments in time were frozen on the same piece of metal. These coins offer a direct glimpse into a malfunction during production, making them highly sought after. Die-related errors are among the most fascinating aspects of error coin collecting. Dies are under tremendous pressure during production, and over time they can crack, chip, or wear out. When a cracked die continues to be used, it leaves raised lines on every coin it strikes. Some cracks are thin and delicate, while others are bold and dramatic, running across major design elements. A 1989 D dime with a large, well-defined die crack can attract intense interest, especially if the crack creates a distinctive pattern that sets the coin apart from all others. Die chips occur when small pieces of the die break off, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin. These blobs can appear anywhere, sometimes giving the impression of extra letters, numbers, or shapes. In some cases, die chips can create what looks like a completely new design element, sparking debate and fascination among collectors. Each die chip is unique, and once the die is replaced, th. My dears, our next history revolves around a tiny piece of everyday money that most people would never think twice about spending. It's a Liberty 1 dime from 1992 with a D mint mark, a coin that normally carries a face value of just 10 cents. Yet under rare and extraordinary circumstances, this very coin has been associated with values spoken of in figures as high as 228,000 millions. That staggering difference between what it says on the coin and what it could potentially represent in the collector world is what makes this story so captivating. At first, this idea can feel impossible. How could a dime, something we drop into vending machines or ignore in our pockets, ever be connected to such enormous value? The answer lies in understanding how coins are made, how mistakes happen even in highly controlled environments, and why collectors are willing to pay incredible sums for pieces that are rare, unusual, and sometimes completely unexpected. This is not about fantasy or luck alone. It's about knowledge, detail, and the hidden stories locked inside metal. The year 1992 was a busy one for the United States Mint. Millions upon millions of dimes were produced to meet the demands of daily commerce. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, played a major role in this production. The Roosevelt dime design was already well established by that time, familiar to generations of Americans. The process was designed to be efficient, fast, and consistent. Every coin was meant to look the same, weigh the same, and function the same. But when production reaches such massive scale, perfection becomes a goal rather than a guarantee. The Liberty 1 dime of 1992 follows the traditional Roosevelt dime design. On one side, the portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt symbolizes leadership, resilience, and national strength. On the other side, the torch, flanked by olive and oak branches, represents liberty, peace, and strength. These symbols are powerful, yet so familiar that many people barely notice them anymore. But collectors know that familiarity is exactly what makes unusual details stand out. Errors and mistakes can occur at multiple stages during the minting process. Everything begins with the creation of planchets, which are the blank metal discs that eventually become coins. These planchets must meet strict standards for weight, thickness, and composition. If something goes wrong at this stage, the error can follow the planchet all the way through striking and into circulation. A 1992 D dime struck on an improperly prepared planchet might weigh too much or too little, appear slightly thicker or thinner than normal, or show unusual surface characteristics. One of the most fascinating possibilities is a wrong planchet error. This happens when a dime design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another coin entirely. The result is immediately unusual. The coin may be larger, smaller, or heavier than expected. Its color might differ due to a different metal composition. A 1992 D dime struck on the wrong planchet would represent a major breakdown in quality control, making it extremely rare and highly desirable to collectors. The striking process itself introduces even more opportunities for mistakes. During striking, powerful presses force the dies onto the planchet, transferring the design into the metal. If the planchet is not properly aligned, an off-center strike can occur. On a dime, even a modest off-center strike can be dramatic, shifting the design toward the edge and leaving blank space on one side. If the date and mint mark remain visible, the value of such an error can increase significantly. Double strikes are another category of errors that excite collectors. This occurs when a coin is struck more than once by the dies. Sometimes the coin shifts between strikes, creating overlapping images that look almost surreal. Other times, the coin remains mostly in place, resulting in a thickened or distorted design. A 1992 D dime with a clear double strike captures a moment when the minting process failed to reset properly, freezing an error in metal. Die-related errors add even more depth to the story. Dies are subject to tremendous stress during production. Over time, they can crack, chip, or wear down. A die crack occurs when a fracture forms in the die, leaving a raised line on every coin struck afterward. Some die cracks are small and subtle, while others are bold and dramatic, cutting across major design elements. A 1992 D dime with a prominent die crack can be visually striking and highly collectible. Die chips occur when small pieces of the die break off entirely. This leaves raised blobs of metal on the coin, often in unexpected places. These blobs can resemble extra letters, shapes, or symbols, creating endless fascination and debate. Each die chip is unique, and once the damaged die is replaced, that specific error can never be repeated. Another intriguing phenomenon. My great history lovers, now, we're diving deep into the world of a Liberty 1 dime from 1993 with a D mint mark, a coin that most people would never think twice about. Its face value is only 10 cents, something we casually spend without a second thought. Yet under rare and extraordinary circumstances, this very coin has been connected to values discussed as high as $227,000 millions. That enormous gap between what the coin is supposed to be worth and what it could represent to collectors is what makes this story so powerful. When people first hear numbers like that attached to a dime, disbelief is natural. It sounds impossible, even absurd. But the truth is that coin collecting has always been a world where the smallest details matter, where tiny differences can create massive shifts in value. The story of the 1993 D Liberty 1 dime is not about fantasy or exaggeration alone. It is about how coins are made, how errors occur despite strict controls, and why collectors around the world are willing to pay extraordinary sums for coins that break the rules of perfection. To truly understand this, we need to slow down and look closely at the year 1993 itself. The United States Mint was operating at full capacity, producing enormous quantities of coins to support everyday commerce. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, played a crucial role in this effort. Millions upon millions of dimes were struck that year, all intended to be identical in appearance, weight, and composition. These coins were meant to flow seamlessly through the economy, unnoticed and unexamined. The Roosevelt dime design was already well established by 1993. The portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt symbolized leadership, resilience, and hope, values deeply rooted in American history. The reverse design, featuring the torch flanked by olive and oak branches, carried powerful symbolism of liberty, peace, and strength. These elements were familiar to everyone, so familiar that most people barely noticed them anymore. Yet it is precisely this familiarity that makes errors so striking when they appear. The journey of a coin begins long before it is struck. It starts with raw metal, carefully measured and processed into planchets, the blank discs that will eventually become coins. These planchets must meet strict specifications for size, thickness, weight, and composition. Even a slight deviation can lead to an error that carries through the rest of the minting process. A 1993 D dime struck on a flawed planchet could immediately differ from normal examples in ways that only a careful observer might notice at first. One of the most dramatic and valuable possibilities is a wrong planchet error. This happens when a dime design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another coin entirely. Imagine picking up a dime that feels heavier than normal, or one that looks slightly larger or smaller than expected. These differences can be the first clues that something extraordinary has occurred. A wrong planchet error represents a serious breakdown in the minting process, making such coins exceptionally rare. The striking process itself is another stage where mistakes can happen. During striking, immense pressure forces the dies into the planchet, imprinting the design into the metal. If the planchet is not properly aligned, an off-center strike can occur. This results in part of the design being pushed toward the edge of the coin, leaving blank space on the opposite side. On a dime, even a modest off-center strike can be visually dramatic. If the date and mint mark remain visible, collectors often find these coins especially appealing. Double strikes are another fascinating category of errors. This occurs when a coin is struck more than once by the dies. Sometimes the coin shifts between strikes, creating overlapping images that appear distorted or doubled. Other times, the coin remains mostly in place, resulting in a thickened or shadowed design. A 1993 D dime with a clear double strike captures a moment when the minting process failed to reset correctly, freezing that mistake into the metal forever. Die-related errors add yet another layer of intrigue. Dies are hardened steel tools designed to withstand incredible force, but they are not immune to damage. Over time, they can crack, chip, or wear down. A die crack appears as a raised line on the surface of the coin, following the path of the fracture in the die. Some cracks are faint and subtle, while others are bold and dramatic, cutting across major design elements. Die chips occur when small pieces of the die break off entirely. This leaves raised blobs of metal on the coin, often in unexpected places. These blobs can look like extra letters, shapes, or symbols, leading to endless fascination and speculation. Each die chip is unique, and once the damaged die is replaced, that specific error can never occur again. Another compelling phenomenon is die clash. Now, we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious stories in modern American coin collecting, the Liberty One Dime 1994 United States coin. This is a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, simple, and familiar, yet under the right conditions, with the right errors, mistakes, and mint mark peculiarities, it has been connected to jaw-dropping values reaching up to $225,000 and even more in rare, extreme circumstances. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you may never look at pocket change the same way again. The Liberty One Dime, more commonly known as the Roosevelt dime, has been part of everyday American life for decades. By 1994, millions upon millions of these dimes were struck and released into circulation. Most people spent them without a second thought, tossing them into vending machines, parking meters, or jars at home. The face value of the coin, just 10 cents, seemed fixed and unchangeable. Yet coin collecting history has proven time and again that face value means almost nothing when rarity, condition, and minting errors enter the picture. The 1994 dime, struck at the Denver Mint, is a perfect example of how a common coin can transform into a legendary treasure under extraordinary circumstances. To understand why this dime has attracted such intense attention, we must first understand what it is supposed to be. A normal 1994 dime is composed of a copper core clad with a layer of nickel, weighs approximately 2.27 grams, measures about 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and features the familiar portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the front. The word Liberty appears boldly, accompanied by the motto "In God We Trust," while the reverse displays a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. The small d mint mark indicates it was produced in Denver, one of the most prolific mints in the United States. In normal circulated condition, a typical 1994 dime is worth exactly what it says on the coin, 10 cents. Even in uncirculated condition, most examples are valued at only a modest premium, often just $1 or $2. This reality makes the extraordinary valuations tied to certain 1994 dimes even more astonishing. How can a coin that exists in such massive numbers suddenly become worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? The answer lies in errors, mistakes, and highly unusual mint mark anomalies that turn an everyday object into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The United States Mint operates with precision, but it is still run by humans and machines, and where there are machines and humans, there is always room for error. Most errors are caught and destroyed before coins ever leave the mint, but occasionally, something slips through. When that happens, collectors pay attention, because mint errors represent moments in time where the normal process broke down, creating something unique and unrepeatable. For the 1994 dime, several categories of errors have been documented or theorized, and it is these possibilities that drive the extraordinary values attached to the coin. One of the most important factors is the mint mark itself. The D mint mark on a 1994 dime tells us it was struck in Denver, but what if that mint mark is not normal? What if it is doubled, misplaced, missing, or even punched over another mint mark? In earlier decades, mint marks were added to dies by hand, which made errors like repunched mint marks more common. By 1994, mint marks were integrated into the die itself, making such errors extremely rare. That rarity is exactly what fuels high values. Imagine discovering a 1994 dime where the D mint mark appears doubled, showing clear separation visible under magnification. Not a simple shadow or strike doubling, but a true doubled mint mark created during the die-making process. Such an error would be astonishing because it should not exist at all in that era. If verified by professional grading services, such a coin would instantly become one of the most talked about modern error coins in existence, potentially commanding prices in the hundreds of thousands of dollars due to its uniqueness and historical importance. Another extraordinary possibility involves missing mint marks. While Philadelphia dimes normally lack a mint mark, a Denver dime missing its D mint mark would represent a serious anomaly. If a 1994 dime intended for Denver production somehow ended up struck without the mint mark, it would raise significant questions about how the die was prepared and used. These types of errors are exceptionally rare in modern coinage, and collectors place enormous value on them because they challenge what we believe to be standard mint procedures. Beyond mint mark errors, there are striking errors that can dramatically increase a coin's value. One such error is an off-metal strike. This occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another country. Imagine a. Now, my lovely friends, we're diving into one of the most intriguing, fascinating, and potentially lucrative coins in modern American numismatics, the Liberty One Dime 1998p. This coin, at first glance, seems ordinary, simple, and part of everyday change. Yet, due to its unique errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and other possibilities, it has the potential to be worth a staggering $22.2 million or more, entirely different from its face value of just 10 cents. Yes, a coin you could have in your pocket decades ago could today be worth more than the salary of multiple lifetimes. Stay with me, because by the end of this exploration, you may never look at coins in the same way again. The Liberty One dime, also commonly referred to as the Roosevelt dime, has been circulating in the United States since 1946. By 1998, millions upon millions of these dimes had been struck and distributed to banks, retail stores, and countless households across the nation. For the average person, the dime was simply 10 cents, a small, unassuming coin used to pay for candy, parking meters, vending machines, and countless other daily transactions. However, the seemingly mundane nature of this coin masks its hidden potential. Among the millions produced, certain examples contain errors, anomalies, and rare minting peculiarities that make them exceptionally valuable to collectors worldwide. The 1998p dime was minted at the Philadelphia Mint, as indicated by the absence of a mint mark, since Philadelphia coins typically do not carry one for the dime denomination during this period. The obverse of the coin features the familiar portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, a design that has been a constant in American coinage for decades. Surrounding his portrait are the inscriptions "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," as well as the date 1998 prominently displayed. The reverse showcases the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. This design, while familiar to most, provides subtle details that, when flawed, create the errors that drive the immense value we are discussing today. Most 1998p dimes are worth their face value, or at most $1 or $2 if uncirculated. But among these ordinary coins are anomalies that are rare and highly sought after. Errors, mistakes, and minting anomalies are the primary factors that elevate a simple dime to the level of a multi-million-dollar treasure. To fully appreciate why the 1998p dime can command such extraordinary value, we need to delve into the different types of errors and rare occurrences that can occur during the minting process. One of the most significant factors is mint mark anomalies. Even though Philadelphia dimes do not carry a mint mark for this year, there have been instances where errors create the appearance of a misplaced or doubled mark. Imagine discovering a 1998 dime where a faint or unexpected mark appears, caused by a die defect or a foreign object interfering with the minting process. Such anomalies are exceedingly rare and highly prized because they demonstrate a deviation from the intended minting procedure. Professional collectors prize these anomalies for both their rarity and the story they tell about the minting process. Another major category of errors is striking errors. This includes coins that are off-center, misaligned, or struck on planchets intended for other denominations. An off-center strike occurs when the coin is not properly aligned between the dies during production, causing a portion of the design to be missing or cut off. Depending on the severity, off-center strikes can drastically increase the coin's value. A 1998p dime struck significantly off-center, while still clearly showing the date and design elements, could command extraordinary interest among collectors. The larger the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin typically becomes, especially if it remains in pristine condition. Double strikes are another source of value. A double-struck coin occurs when the coin is struck more than once by the dies, often with slight movement between strikes. This creates overlapping images, distorted lettering, and other unusual effects. True double strikes are rare and highly collectible, especially when combined with other errors or anomalies. A 1998 P dime with a strong double strike, visible without magnification, could be one of the most sought-after coins in modern American coinage. Die cracks, die breaks, and cuds also contribute to the value of certain coins. As mint dies wear down over time, they can develop cracks or even break, resulting in raised lines or blobs of metal on the coins they strike. While some minor cracks are common and only moderately valuable, large, visually striking die breaks or cuds can create unique coins that are highly prized. A 1998 P dime with a major die break that affects Roosevelt's portrait or the reverse design would be a remarkable find and could dramatically increase the. If you've ever looked at a simple dime in your pocket and thought it was just a 10-cent piece, today's video is going to completely change your perspective. We're going to explore the incredible story behind one of the most fascinating coins in modern American numismatics, the Liberty 1 dime 2005 P. At first glance, it seems ordinary, unassuming, and part of everyday change. Yet, due to a combination of errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and other unusual possibilities, this coin can be worth an astounding $21.5 million, a figure that dwarfs its modest face value. Yes, a coin that most of us might have casually spent decades ago could today represent a fortune beyond imagination. By the end of this video, you will see why the Liberty 1 dime 2005 P is one of the most exciting coins for collectors, historians, and investors alike. The Liberty 1 dime, commonly known as the Roosevelt dime, has been circulating in the United States since 1946. By 2005, millions upon millions of these dimes had been produced at the Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P designation for the mint location. The obverse of the coin features the familiar portrait of Franklin D. Roosevelt, carefully engraved to capture his likeness, and surrounded by the inscriptions Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and the year 2005. The reverse showcases the torch of liberty, the olive branch symbolizing peace, and the oak branch representing strength, creating a balanced and iconic design that has remained largely unchanged for decades. On its surface, this coin appears ordinary, indistinguishable from the countless dimes that pass through our hands daily. However, as collectors know, the seemingly mundane can hide extraordinary secrets, and the 2005 P dime is a perfect example of this phenomenon. What makes the 2005 P Liberty 1 dime so valuable are the unique minting errors and anomalies that can occur during production. While the vast majority of these dimes are worth only their face value, a rare few exhibit characteristics that are highly sought after by collectors and investors. These anomalies include mint mark errors, striking errors, double strikes, off-metal strikes, die cracks, cuds, and other irregularities that make certain specimens rare, historically significant, and incredibly valuable. When combined with excellent condition and professional grading, these coins can reach valuations that seem almost unimaginable. Mint mark anomalies are one of the key factors contributing to the extraordinary value of some 2005 P dimes. Philadelphia coins typically do not carry a mint mark for dimes, but in rare instances, errors during production can result in the appearance of an unexpected mark, doubling, or other irregularity on the coin's surface. Such anomalies are extremely rare, as they deviate from the standard minting process and often occur only once or a handful of times in a production run. A 2005 P dime with a mint mark anomaly would immediately capture the attention of collectors worldwide because it represents a one-of-a-kind occurrence within a widely circulated coin series. The rarity of this type of anomaly, combined with its historical significance, can elevate the coin's value dramatically. Striking errors are another category that can increase the value of a 2005 P dime. These include off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned between the dies during production, resulting in a partial design or a misaligned image. The severity of the off-center strike directly affects the coin's value. For instance, a dime struck off-center by just a few millimeters may be modestly valuable, while a coin struck significantly off-center, yet still retaining a clear date and major design elements, can become a high-end collector's item. These errors are highly sought after because they provide a visual indication of the minting anomaly and a tangible connection to the coin's creation. Double strikes are another source of value. A double-struck coin occurs when a coin is struck more than once by the dies, often with slight movement between strikes. This creates overlapping images, distorted lettering, and sometimes ghost-like impressions of the design. True double strikes are rare and highly collectible, particularly when they involve prominent elements such as Roosevelt's portrait, the date, or the inscriptions. A 2005 P dime exhibiting a strong double strike could easily become a centerpiece in a high-end coin collection. Die cracks, cuds, and die breaks also contribute to a coin's potential value. As mint dies wear down over time, cracks or breaks can develop, resulting in raised lines, blobs, or other irregularities on the coins they strike. Minor die cracks may have limited impact on value, but large, visually striking die breaks, especially those that alter major design elements, are extremely valuable to collectors. A 2005 P dime with a prominent die crack across Roosevelt's profile or extending through Th.